Hey, how's it going everyone? In today's project, you are going to learn how to create a multi-step form using the React framework / library, and also we're going to use the useState hook. Now this step-through form will consist of a sign-in page where you can enter your email, your password, and then you can confirm your password. Then the next one will be the registration form where you can add your first name, last name, so personal information. And the next one will be the contact form, which will basically will consist of adding your address, which will be just city and street. You can add multiple things if you wish later on to this. Now the progress of the form will be indicated by a progress bar. The progress bar will change color, indicating the current state of the registration form, which in our case will be purple. And when the form will be successfully finalized, it will turn to green, so indicating that we are done with our registration. Also, at the end of the form, you will be greeted with your introduced information. So for example, let me introduce a bit of information within the form. Let's say for the email, norbert@mail, then some sort of password, confirm the password, click on next. Also, you can see after I left the very first form, this previous button appeared. Now, this is not visible until we are on the next page or in the next form. So enter here name, Norbert Manhart. You can spell my name correctly. And then for a username, Norbert BM. Okay, let's click on next. Then some city, some street, let's say 21 Jump Street. And then Raccoon City. Woo! Now, if we submit this, then we are done with our registration and it will greet us with our complete name. This consists of our first name and our last name, then our username and our email address. Okay. Now, if we click on finish, this will just reset the form. Basically, we are done with our registration. Now, for styling, I will use mostly Bootstrap just because it's speedier. So we're not going to go into specific styling. We're also going to use just a tinge of CSS, but the entire code is down in the description below, so you can just download it. I would suggest just to download the CSS file, so you just have a starter file, just copy it in there, and the rest of the code will be also accessible, so you can compare it if you got lost. Now, we're also not going to add any kind of validation to the form, mainly because of the sole purpose of the project, which is just teaching you the steps, so the multiple forms, how they are created and how the state will store the information, and at the end of the form it will be displayed on the page. Now, if you do wish that I create validation for this project, then please leave it in the comment section below and I will gladly create another video with just the validation part for this. Okay, so with this being said, as always, I'm Norbert and I teach web development on my channel, so please consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell in order to get notified whenever I post new videos. Also, if you're excited for this project, then please give it a thumbs up and share it with others. Now, I think that's it for me. I'm going to remove my face and let's get into the project. Now, first things first, we need to install React. I just created an empty folder and within here I'm going to install React. So let's open up our console, Control tilde or Command tilde on a PC, and let's type in npx create react-app and space and dot because I want to install React within this folder. Okay, so let's just go through the steps that we're going to use in order to create this application. We're going to create the pages. So we're going to create a pages folder where all of these are actually separate pages. One is going to contain the information, the basic information, the sign up, the registration, and the contact form. And also at the end, we're going to have this. This is also a second page, which is going to store all of our values. So first step will be to create this page, the pages, and then we're going to create components. Now, you know, actually what? First step will be to create some components. We're going to create button components, form component, and input field components. Basically, when I want to create a new form, a new page, then I'm just going to use a couple of components. It's much speedier that way. Okay, now that we have React up and running, I'm just going to, am I in my project? Yep, I'm in my project. So npm start, and this will start the project on a different port. Yes, I want to start it on a different port. Because right here, this is on 3001, and this would be on 3002. Okay, we have our basic React application. I'm going to go into the source and I'm going to start deleting a couple of things we don't need. the app test, logo, report, setup, going to delete them, then this will crash, and also app CSS, we don't need you. Now let's go into our index file, and actually, you know what, I'm going to make this a bit smaller, going to delete this part, and we're going to delete the import. Let's hit save. Now in our app, we need to delete a logo import, and I'm still missing something. Oh, yeah, I could also delete this, the entire head, hit save. What are we still missing? App.js, oh, I deleted the app.js. Why did I delete it? No, wait, I need you. App.js, cancel app CSS. No problem, also don't need you. And we don't need our logo, so I'm going to delete the complete head and just going to have this div with app. Okay, so first things first, let's start with our components. The very first component will be a button component. So let's get started with that one. And for this, we're going to go into our source folder, create a new folder called components. Hey, what are you doing? So once again, components. And within our components folder, we're going to create our very first component, will be a button component. So create a new file, button.js. Okay, within our button.js, we're going to use our abbreviation. Very quick, I have one important extension I want to show you, that is React, and this one right here, ES7 plus React Redux, so far and so on, is going to give you all of the snippets. Also down here, I need to change this, not to JavaScript, but to React. So the type of the language that you're using, always change it to React in each and every file. It is if it's not changing automatically for you. Now from here on, I'm going to use abbreviations RFCE. This is going to create me and export a function. Button, this is not correct. So sorry about that. Let me just change this and also change the name of this to button. There we go. Okay, so we have our button. Now we actually need to create a button instead of the div, a button tag. So I'm going to change this. And our button is going to have a couple of properties. So I'm just going to insert them here. It's a couple of props. We're going to have a color prop, then text. And I think that's basically it for now. Because we're not using icons, we're not using anything else. So instead of the button, I'm going to type in here text. Each time we're going to pass this prop in here, we're going to insert the text for the button. Next up, we're going to, let me just think about it. Yeah, class name, and we're going to use here, open and close curly brackets, then template literals, so template string, and btn dash $sign. I'm going to use the variable of color. So each time we're going to use this color, is going to be passed in here, and it's going to grab on from Bootstrap to a color. We didn't link up Bootstrap. We're going to do that, but we're going to take care of our styling. So just in a couple of seconds, let me just finish this right here, this button component. Now, I also want to have an on-click event. So let's pass in here, on-click, actually this should be a capital C. And when we're going to use our click event, so on-click, we're going to set this to on-click. So each time we're going to pass in here, a click event is going to be passed through. And there should be capital C. All right, that's basically it for this part. I don't need anything else. Yeah, disabled. We're also going to pass in the property of disabled. So is disabled. Oh, let's just type in disabled, and we're going to set this to the question is disabled. But just even if you don't use this, I just want you to have this because it's so useful. Okay, you can constantly, hey, is disabled? No, not for there. Don't need this library. Okay, basically that's it for the button. We're done with our button component. Next up, we're going to link up Bootstrap, and we're going to insert our CSS. So let me go to Bootstrap, and from here we're going to go to Get Started. Then we're going to look for the CSS part, and this is the CDN. So just copy the CDN, right click, copy, or Control or Command C. Actually just, yeah, Command C. On a Mac. Then we're going to go into public, and from public we're going to go into the index file. You can just delete all of these comments, you don't need them. You can also delete this one and just paste in above your title this right here, and actually you can change the title to multi-step form in React. Boom, there we go. Now we have the title changed up here. Okay, we can actually close up our index.html. We don't need this anymore. We can now go to our app, and our app is running right here. So let's use a button. For this, we first need to import our button. Let's go here, import. I'm going to import a button from the components and button. So let's go down in our app and let's use a button, close it up. And we should have our button, which is not displaying anything because now we need a text. I'm going to say, I'll just say test. And you should be a string. And there we go. There's our test button. It doesn't have any color, so let's give it a color of, let's say, is equal to the string of success. Okay, and we have our green button. So you can see Bootstrap is already working, and now we can move on because we're done with our button. Next up, let's create our form input group. We're going to go to our components, new file, and we're going to name this one form input group. Now this group is going to consist out of .js. Now this group is going to consist out of a label and an input tag. So let's just create our FCE. Let's create our component in input. What is wrong with me today? Should be n, and you should be n, and you should be n. Let me change you here, input. So instead of this div, I'm just going to have a fragment. We're going to delete this. We're going to move into the fragment, and now we're going to create another div with a class of column. And because this is not set to React, Emmet is not working, so let me just change this, the language. So dot column is going to give me a div with a class of column, which is a Bootstrap class. Now we're going to create a label, and this label is going to be for, well, the input is not relevant right now, but we do need to give this a class of form and dash label. Within our label tag, I'm going to insert our first prop, which is going to be label. I'm going to also copy it and paste it in here. So when we're going to use our component, we can assign this label a name. Then underneath our label, I'm going to create our input tag, and we're going to give this the property of type. So the type is going to be set by the type. Let's also copy it in here, type. We're also going to give this a value, is equal to value, whatever value we will pass in here. And also let's pass it through as a prop. And the last property is going to be on change. And this is going to be assigned to on change. So whenever a change happens, something should happen. Okay, and let me pass it in here. And the last thing that we need is the class, and the class will be class name, and the class will be form control, which is also a Bootstrap class. Okay, so we're done with our component. But in order to use this, now we need to create a couple of forms. So let's go ahead and create our very first form, which will be the sign up form component. Now I'm not going to create it in components. I'm actually going to create a new folder in our source. We're going to call this pages. We can call it also forms. It doesn't matter. Let's call it pages. So within pages, we're going to create a new file. And the very first form, as I said, will be the sign up one and .js. And I'm going to use a rfce. I'm going to delete the divs. And this is why I didn't name this forms and let it actually as pages, because we're not going to use a form, well, a form tag within here. We're just going to use components to build this form. And we have our input form groups, so we're going to import them here. So import form input groups, and we're going to start using them here. So our very first form input group will be for the email. So if you take a look in our finished project, this is what we need right here. We need our email, we need our password, and our confirm password. So let's go ahead and create it. As you know, we have a label prop. I'm going to give this the name of email. Then let's give it a type, which we're going to set to email. Then a value, which I'm going to, for the moment, leave as an empty string, and that onChange event, which we're not going to assign to anything right now. So we have our email. We also need our password and our confirm password. And for this, I'm just going to copy this 2 times. I don't need this right here. I'm going to replace this with password, and the type also with password. You know what? Actually, I'm going to delete this and copy this one. I'm just going to replace this with confirm password. Okay, that's basically it. Now the rest of this, I'm going to, you know what? Let me assign on the on change a event, and this event should console log the event. Okay, I'm just going to copy and paste this all over the place in each input. Okay, there we go. So we have our very first page, as we could call it, ready. Now let's insert it somewhere. And for this, we're going to create now our form component. Let me close this one up, Let's go into components, new file, and create form component.js. Okay, so let's again our RFCE. We have a form. Within here, we're going to import our sign up form. So our sign up component, sign up. I'm going to delete you. And you know what? I'm going to insert now, import our form in here. I'm going to delete this button. And I'm going to delete this button. And I'm going to leave this button imported because we're going to use buttons but a bit later on. And I'm going to copy, paste, and replace the button with form. Okay, and now let's use the form here. So form, and we should have our form. We should have our very first form. Now let's go into our form again, and this sign up, and there we go. There's our form. Well, we just have the name of form, so let's take care of this by actually creating here a form components. We're actually creating here a form tag. So form, and the form is going to have the class name of form container. And within our form, we're going to use our sign up form. Okay, and there we go. We have our very first form. So let's create our next component, which is going to be that registration component, which will basically hold our personal information. So let's go into pages, and let's name this personal info.js. Our FCE, again, we're just going to create a fragment. We're going to import our form import groups, and let's start creating them. So the very first import group will be for, let us take a look in our finished project. Let's take another step, the first name, last name, and username. So let's create this. Now we have our label. Did I misspell label? Let me just take a look. Form input. Hey, sorry about that. So it's label. So sorry. Haha, let's move in here. L, and L. So sorry about that. Okay, now this is working. So label, and the very first label will be for text. And this should be actually React. So the very first label will be for first name. Then the type of this will be text. For the value, we're just going to insert, first of all, an empty string, and then on change, just going to pass into the event, and then we're going to console log, arrow function, console log that event. Okay, now I'm going to copy this because we still need two more. The next one will be for last name, and then the last one will be for username. Type text, value string, and event console log. Okay, and now we can use this form. So actually I could save this, close it up, move into our form, copy this one, and let's use personal info. Let's also import it here and replace this. Whoa. Personal info, save you, and what am I doing? I need you down here. Okay, so we got this form also ready. Let's create the next one, which will be the address or where the contact information. So let's create another file here, address.js rfce. Let's replace this. Let's import our form input group. I'm going to cut this out. I'm moving a bit faster now, okay? Just to don't waste your time. Okay, now the type will be text again, and the label will be for street. Let's close up the string. The value will be for now empty, and on change, we're going to pass in the event. Okay, now I'm going to copy this and have the next one, which will be for city, and capital C, and that's it. Now let's also import this one. So I'm just going to close it up, import it up here. So address, and down here we're going to use our address component. There we go. If we say we're going to have city and street. So now that we have all three of our forms in our form component, or all three of our pages, let's start adding down here the buttons, which will be this previous and next button. And then I'm also going to show you, but a bit later on, how we can make this previous button disappear when we are on the first page, and also make both of them disappear when we're on our last page. Okay, so let's get started. Let's go back to our form component, and within the form tags, let's go down here and add a div, and I'm just going to give this a class of margin top 5, so mt5. And within here, I'm going to import those two buttons. Let me just see. Okay, the buttons are not yet imported. So if I go, you actually start it here. So button, and this will automatically import it. Okay, close the component up, and there we go. We have our very first button. Doesn't show here because we don't have anything in the button. But if you take a look at our button components, so we can give it a class name, which was set by giving it the color. So let's go back in our form. You know what? I'm going to close sign in, form group, app, index, and also this one. So we're just going to have our form and our buttons opened. So let's start up with the text, and the text will be within quotation marks next. Okay, let's save that, and there we go. There we have our very first button. But let's also add some color to it. So I'm going to go up here, say color. I'm going to set the color. You actually don't need the curly brackets up here. You can delete them. So for the color, I'm going to set this to a purple. Let me just see. Was the first one purple? Yep, the first one was purple. So purple. Okay, let's hit save. And I think I forgot to create and add the app CSS. Oh, never mind. Let's just do that. Or did I delete it? Nevertheless, app.css file. And let's start adding a couple of things to it. Actually, you do have this in the description down below, so you could just download it. But I'm just going to copy in the and delete this index CSS, so you don't need it. Okay, this will break my app. We're going to go up here, index CSS, bye-bye. And we're going to go to our app and import the app CSS. Because for whatever reason, I either deleted it or I just messed something up and forgot to create it. So between quotations, I'm going to import the app.css. Okay, let's hit save, and there we go. Now let's go into our app CSS. I'm going to create a couple of classes here. First, I'm going to target the root, as you would do in regular CSS. And within our root, I'm going to set a variable, which is going to be purple. I'm going to give this the hexadecimal color of 6200FF. Okay, so we have this variable in our global scope. Now let's create a text purple class, and this is going to be color. I'm going to set the color of this to var. It's going to basically use this variable of purple. Next up, I'm going to create a purple button, which is going to be class btn dash purple, and I'm going to set. I have two dots here. I just need one. I'm going to set the background color of this to the variable purple. Basically, you can change this if you want. You can add another color. And the color of the text will be then white. Okay, let's scroll up a bit. And for now, that's enough because the progress bar, I'm going to take care of that a bit later on. Because this is also where I'm going to style the progress bar. Okay, so we have now color purple and a button purple. And this is why the button is now working and it has a purple color. So I can close up app CSS and the app.js file. And let's go ahead and continue on with our buttons. So we have our button, which is going to be the button that's going to take care of the next step for a form. And we gave this the class of purple, and on click, let's give it also the on click event. It will just trigger the on click, which we passed in here. So on click, this right here will trigger this on click. Let's go and pass in here the event, and the event will then trigger the on click. Okay, so this will theoretically, well, you can always see it's submitting the form. So let's click on inspect console, and let's click on click, and this is submitting the form. Now we obviously don't want this to submit the form. We want it to do something, to take another step. Now I'm just going to wrap this into another set of curly brackets, and I'm going to e.prevent default. Prevent. There we go. So now if I click on this button, nothing happens. Because no longer submitting the form is preventing its default behavior. I'm going to close up our console and add the second button, which is actually here. I'm just going to copy this button and change the first one on top. So this is going to be is going to have the text of Prev. The class will be dark, and I'm going to also give it a margin to the end of 3, and everything else I'm just going to leave as it is. Okay, so we have our 2 buttons. Our next step will be to add only one page depending on a certain condition. So now we need to import useState into our component here. I'm going to go up here, comma, and within curly brackets, useState. Above our return, I'm going to create a const and assign here a page and a set page, which is going to set our page. And I'm going to assign this to useState and set it for now to 0. Now all 3 of our pages are loaded within our form. How about we create a condition where only one page, depending on a certain condition, will be loaded in our form. So basically I want to display our forms in one single place. So let's go ahead, I'm going to cut them out, go above our return, create here const page display, assign this to an error function, and within here I'm going to paste in all 3 of them. Now this is going to give an error, but don't worry about it. What we're now trying to do is display the pages, and actually, let me actually comment them out. Display the pages depending on certain conditions. Now this display page, I'm going to go down in our form, go above our buttons, and let's just create here a div with a class of text start, and within here I'm going to use our display page. So whenever this function is going to be triggered, a page is going to be displayed somewhere above the buttons. So let's just type in here dummy text return a string of page. Okay, there we go. There's our page, and it's centered to the pushed to the left because of our text start class right here. Okay, so this is where our pages will be displayed. So let's add a couple of conditions. Now the first condition will be if our page, so this page right here, is triple equal to 0, then let's just console log the page. So let's open up our console, let's inspect console, and we can see here page 0. Now let's add another condition. Else if the page is triple equal to 1, then we should console log the page again. But because our state is 0, we will always see 0. So how can we change the page? We need to set the page. Now, the setting of the page will happen with the help of our buttons. But before we get into the pages, let's first know, without looking at the console, what kind of page we are on. For this, I'm going to go above our display pages. I'm going to create here another const. Let's call this form title. I'm going to set this to an array. And if we take a look at our finished project, we'll see here sign up, personal info, address, and so on and so on. So basically, these titles, I'm going to set them in this array. And I'm just going to use regular string. So sign up will be the first title. The second one will be personal info. Then the next one will be a string of address. And our last page was the welcome page, which was when we finished signing into our form. So done. Okay, now how can we display this up here, basically in our project? Instead of this is where the pages are displayed, and above our pages we want to display a title. So let's go above our page display right here, create an h1, and I'm going to give this the class of, let's say, display2. You can make a larger display if you want. You can use display1, and let's use here page title. Just going to type it in. Okay, so this is where the page title is going to be displayed. Now let's use our format title or form title instead of page title. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to use here form title, and this form title will display the page, the actual page that is set to. And because the page now is set to 0 within our useState, it will display the page name. If I would change this to 1, that will display personal info. If I would change this to 2, that will display address, because it's going to look to this, see to what is set, and then start displaying the according number in our array to 0, 1, 2, 3. So let's move this back to 0. Now let's go up into our pages, and instead of console log page, we're going to comment this out. So if the page is 0, we're going to return the sign in form. So I'm going to cut this out, paste it in here, take out the comments, also take you out, close this up, and there we go. We're displaying this form. Now, if the page would be 1, then we're going to display, actually comment this out, cut it out, comment out console log, move it in here, and return personal info. So if I would change this to 1, it's going to change the page. Now, you can see also the title is changing because this is looking right here for the page. And if the page is set to 1, then it's going to display the 1. Now, if I change this to 2, it's not going to display anything because we need our second else if. So let's just copy this, paste it down here, change this to 2, and change this to address. And I can now, delete this, and now we got address. Okay, so we can change it from here, but that is not what we want. We want to use our useState by clicking on the buttons and displaying different pages throughout our click events. So let's go down to our buttons. Now, in the next button, so button next, right after our prevent default, we're going to start by creating a condition. So if the page, now we can look for the page title, so form title dot length -1. So if it's the previous page, then we'll console log first of all the form. So down after our prevent default, we're going to say that we're going to use our set page, and we're going to set the page to current page, and this current page, we're going to add 1 to it. Okay, so if it's not going to work, but if I would click on this, it's going to give me the next page. Now, we need to do the same thing for our previous page. So let's go ahead, copy this, paste it in the previous page, and we just need to subtract here 1. This is already working. Okay, but when we are on our first page, our sign-in page, there is no previous page. I also don't want this to work. So how can we do that? Well, we can create a condition. We can hide our button depending on which page we're on. So I'm going to go ahead, grab onto our first button, and create here before the button a if page, so page is not equal to 0. So if it's not the first page, and I misspelled page here, peg. So if it's not the first page, which is page number 0, then the button will be displayed, and then down here else is going to be displayed null. Okay, so we're on our first page, the button is already gone. If I click on next, the button is going to appear. If I click previous, so if I go to the previous sign up form, the button is going to disappear. Now it's time to add our very last page, which is the welcome page. So let's go ahead, go to pages, create here a new file. I'm going to call this welcome.js. So RFCE, I'm going to delete this div, and within our welcome, we're going to start creating our welcome form. So let's go ahead, create an h4, which is going to have the class of text-center. And I, again, don't have React activated, so React, there we go, center, and then another class of margin from the top of 2. Okay, within here, I'm going to just, so for whatever text there is in there, I'm going to copy it in. Don't want to waste too much time. So we are here, that's our h4, and we can also go to the very last page, which is the done page, and we can't see anything. So let's just go quickly back to form, and let's create here the last condition. We can just type in else. So right in our page display, we will return, well, not you, but we're going to return our welcome, and there we go. Now remember, this is automatically imported up here. If it didn't import for you, then you need to import welcome from .pages, because you need to move out of the components and into the pages and welcome. You can see here we're already on our register was successful. You know what? I'm going to also close up the console. Don't need this right now. Okay, let's move back to welcome, and let's continue on by styling our welcome and creating our welcome form. After our h4, I'm going to create a div with a class of card dot margin from the top 4. Within here, I'm going to go ahead, create a h6 with a class of card header, a bg dark, and a text white. So if you take a look at now, finished project is going to be this. We have a title done. We have our subtitle here. Registration was successful, and we need to create this part right here. So this is the form, the card, which not the form. This is the card. This is going to be the header, where our first name and last name will be displayed, and we're going to have this username and email down below. So we don't have any data for now inserted here. We're going to take this. We're going to take care of this in at the end. But for now, we just want to have this completely styled, so we don't have to take care of this later on. Hey, I just give this a class of A6. I didn't want to do that. This should be an A6. A6. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, now after our header, so we're going to have some data in here. We can just type in full name for now, and this is going to be replaced later on. So full name. Then after full name, we're going to have this body after header. So let's go ahead, create class of card body, and within our card body, we're going to create just an unordered list, the class of list dash group, and another class of list group and flush. These are Bootstrap classes. Now we're going to create here two LIs. So li with the class of list group and item, because these are the items of the list group, and I'm going to multiply this times 2. So we're going to have two LIs. For both of them, I'm going to create, so first of all, this will be user name and then a span tag. So a span tag, and the span tag will have the class name of H6 and text success. Okay, so I'm going to have it, whatever will be passed in here will be green at the end of the day. We basically need the same thing, so I'm just going to copy this. We're going to need it down here, but this will not be the username, this will be email, and then that's it. So we got a username and an email. Now this is looking a bit different to this because we are missing a main container which is wrapped around the form. So let's also take care of that part. That's a pretty simple thing. We just need to grab onto our form. So we're returning a form, but instead of a fragment, I'm now going to create a main, which is also going to wrap everything into this main. And this main will have a class name of container. As soon as I hit save, you see it's going to lose a bit of its width. Then I'm going to give this a shadow class. It's going to give everything a bit of a shadow. Then a all-around padding of 5 and a margin from the top of 5. And the last thing that I want is to round up the borders. So I'm going to use rounded and -3. Okay, so there we go. There's our form now. Also, if I make this a bit larger, we'll see this is our form. Okay, let's snap this back here. And let's also give it a max width. I don't want this to be, whoops, grab onto the wrong thing. Don't want this to stretch out infinite, so we could just add, don't need to grab onto this in CSS. We could just add here style and double curly brackets, and I'm going to pass in here a max width of, let's say, just 500. Okay, this is going to be 500 now, or it's max width. It's not going to be larger than this. Obviously, you can play around with this and make it larger or make it infinitely large. Okay, so now we can navigate through our form. The buttons disappear. Okay, we need to take care of the previous button in our last form because actually of both of these buttons. So in our finished project, when we land on our done page, on our welcome page, you see this is a finish button. It's no longer a next button. Also, we don't have our previous button. So let me take care of this. Let's go down into, so in the form components, into buttons. To the very first button, we're going to add another condition. So until now, we said that if the page is not 0, then this previous button shouldn't show. So I'm just going to add a AND condition before a question mark. And if the page is also equal to 3, so the third page, then the button should also not show. Now here we have a small problem. We're going to take care of this. And you should be not equal. Okay, and as soon as I hit save, the previous button is gone. So both page 0 and page 3 are no-nos for this button to be shown. It's going to return null. The next up, let's take care of our next button. No pun intended. This should be a finish button. So first things first, we're going to go up here to text. Let's change this text. I'm going to grab this, wrap it into curly brackets, and let's add the condition that if the page is not equal to 3, then the text is next. So if I save this, we're missing a condition. Else, the text should be finish. And if I hit save, now the text is finished. Now, for the color, I'm just going to copy, actually, first of all, wrap it into curly brackets and say if the page, again, is not equal to the third page, then it should be purple. But if the page, so the contrary, if the page is the third page, then it should be success. And if I hit save, you'll see the button turning green. So if I go back, next, previous, next, previous, and if I go to our very last page, then the button changes its color and the text also. Now let's go ahead and also, sorry about that. Let's go ahead and also take care of the titles, because if you look in our finished project, this title right here is green actually. So let me just finish. All of the titles are purple, excepting the last title, which is green. So let's take care of our title coloring. So up here where we had our H1, we're going to go ahead, wrap this into curly brackets, and wrap this into backticks, because we're going to use here a template string. So $, and now I can use variables within here. So again, if the page is the third page, then we're going to set the text to success. So text dash success. Again, this is a Bootstrap class, success, and else the text, again, string, the text will be purple. Let's hit save. Let's go, ooh, should have been at my finished project. Hey, and now the text is green. So let's finish this. Now we're back to, what am I doing here? Let's refresh this. So all of our pages have a purple text, excepting the very last page, which will now have a green text. So now if I click on finish, you will see we're going to have a problem. It's going to move to another page, but this is gibberish. We shouldn't be here. So let me add here at the last button, at the next and finish button, another condition. Until now, we know that our page, if we click on this button, the page is just going to add to it. But let's wrap this into a if-else statement. So if our page is equal to the form title dot length -1, then we will have a confirmation. Let's say confirmation. Okay, windows.confirmation. I can also use something else, but Windows confirmation and execute it. Also, if we confirm this confirmation, so basically, if I now click on finish, I'm going to say nothing. I could add here some text. Are you done with the registration? Let's click on cancel, go back, finish. Are you done with the registration? Okay, and this will do something. Well, it doesn't do anything interesting right now, so we can just use a windows.location and .reload on it. You know what I'm going to use here? Alert instead of confirmation. And again, alert. There we go. So if I click on previous, finish, and you are done with your registration. Okay, and it's going to reload the page. Because down here, else, if you're not on our very last page, then we're going to use the second functionality, which is going to return the current page. So it's going to set the page and return the next page. Next page, previous page, next page, and we're done. So finish, and this is going to reset the form again. Okay, next up, let's take care of our progress bar up here. So let me just refresh this. Should have used an alert up there. So we are on our very first step, sign up. If we click on next, this is going to progress to a certain percentage, which we're going to add in a couple of minutes. If we click on previous, this is going to regress. But if you click on next, that is going to progress again and again and again till we're done. Then the progress bar is going to change to the color of green. And if you click on finish, it's going to reset itself. Okay, so let's create this. It's going to go, let me just think about it, right after and right before our form. It's going to be, this is the form. So this is our form, and the progress bar will be outside the form. So we're going to create here, sorry about that, a class of progress bar, then a class of shadow, which is going to be a boot class, bootstrap class, and a BG secondary. Okay. Now within this, I'm going to create another div. So div, well, not that. So div, and now I'm going to start to add within here, so we inline styling to it. So style, and the page and the progress bar's width is going to depend on a couple of conditions. But before I do that, let's move into, let me save this. Let's move back into our app CSS and style this, where's our form, and style this progress bar class. Actually, I'm going to take this, copy it, go to our app, paste this bar in here, and we're going to add to this bar a width of 400 pixels and a height of 10 pixels. And you can already see the progress bar. Now I'm going to change the background color to, let's just say white. Don't need hexadecimals. And the margin, let's add a margin to the bottom of 50 pixels. I'm going to push the at top. Oh, Jesus, sorry about that. Bottom. I want to have some distance between the title and the progress bar. Okay, so this progress bar is showing all over the place, all over the form, because it's actually outside the form, so it's in the main container. Now we need here some kind of progress, some kind of visual progress. So for this, I'm going to target the progress bar, and within here, I'm going to target the second div that I created. So div, take a look in our form. We created this progress bar, and within here we have another div. So let's go ahead, target that div, and we're going to set its width to 33.3%. Its height will be 100% of its container, if I can type height correctly. Height 100%, and its background color will be the variable color of purple. Okay, so we're already setting this to, this is just for visual purposes for now. We're going to reset this. So let's now move back. After we finish styling this, let's move back. I'm actually going to close up our app CSS. We don't need this anymore. Index.js, we also don't need you. Button, we don't need you. We have our form and our welcome form. Yeah, we need our welcome form just in a couple of minutes. Okay, so let's move back in our form and let's go here where we have our progress bar. Let's navigate down to the div within the progress bar. Now let's set a couple of conditions. So the width of this progress bar will be actually depending on the page. So if the page, where can I type page, is equal to 0, so we are on the very first page, then we're going to have 1%. Else, if the page is equal to 1, then we're going to have, actually this should be in a string, sorry about this. It should be in a string, 1%, then we're going to have 33.3%. Now, if the page is equal to 2, then we're going to have 66, sorry about that, question mark. Then we're going to have 66%, 0.6%, and we now need a very last else. We're going to have 100%. Let's hit save, and this should be working. Why aren't you working? Okay, yeah. So we're in our sign up form right now. That means we are on our very first page. Also, if I still have the console logs within here, fil statements, I don't have them, but let's just comment them back in. I'm going to copy you and return our welcome page. Also, let's open up the console just to prove this. Console. So we're on our very first page. This means that the state is set to 0. Let's navigate one page further. Clicking on next, we're on our page number 1, which is this one, page info. The form title is now spitting up the second item in the array, and it's introducing it here. Also, the progress bar just progressed 33%, then 66%, and then we are done. Okay, but we have here a purple color, and I actually want this to be, when it's done, when it's full at 100%, to be, you guessed it, green. You know what? Let me also give this a border around it. Hey, just is a add-on to everything that we did right here. And up here, also going to round it and free. And there we go. Nice. This is even better. I like it. Okay, now let's also change the color. We're going to remain within this div. My voice is going away. Sorry about that. Right after this comma, I'm going to change the background. I'm going to change the color depending on the page. So if the page is equal to 3, not 33. So if the page is equal to 3, then we're going to have we're going to set here colors, so we're not setting classes. So green. Now else, and I don't know if you did know this, but within React you could actually use these variables. You could actually use the CSS variables. So I'm going to use here var, open and close parenthesis, and the variable color of purple. If I hit save, then this is going to change to green. So let's finish. Okay, and now as you can see, this is purple until I'm going to hit the very last page. Woo! But we're still not done yet, because we want to be able, let's click on finish. If we type something in here, you can see in the console it's just logging the event. So doesn't matter where I type something in, just logging the event. Now we want to be able to type something in here, to grab onto it and pass it till the end and display it in our registration, in our successful registration, our welcome page. For this, we're going to use our useState hook again. So let's go up here, up in the top. So let's create a const, and we're going to set this to form data, and then we're going to set form data. And for now, we're going to assign this to useState, and we're going to pass in here just a couple of empty strings. Actually, we're going to pass in here object with multiple options. So we're going to have our email. Let me just refresh this. Go back here. So the very first thing is email as data. Usually you will have this in a database, but I'm just going to provide it within our component. So data, then we're going to email. Sorry about that. Then we're going to have password. Now, although I'm passing in all of this property, all of this data, we're actually just going to display a couple of them at the end, and this should be error. And I'm going to set this to an empty string, and so far and so on. You know what? I'm just going to copy all of them in here. Okay, we're missing here comma, and there we go. So we're going to have our email, password, confirm password, basically this. Then we go to our next page. We're going to have our first name, last name, username, and our street and city, which will be the last one. Now, I am giving you all of this because what I would wish for you to do is, when you're done, to complete this form by adding in all of the data, just as an exercise for you. Now, we have our data in our set useState, but now we need to set the state. And in order to set the state, we're actually setting the state in our forms. So we're setting the first state in our sign up form, and basically we're going to use here the form data, which we're going to pass in as a prop. So form data, and we're also going to set the form from here. So when we're submitting this form, so set form data, sorry about that, is going to be a set form data. Now we're passing this down into our sign up form. So let me hit save and sign up. And now we can pass it on within here in our change and in the value. So within our value, let's first of all bring them all in. We're going to have form data and set form data. So the form data will be in the value. This will be form data, and this will be dot email, because we're setting here the email. Now in our onChange event, we're going to grab onto the event. We're going to use it to set the form data, and from this we're going to destructure and grab onto the initial form data. I'm just going to M here, form data, and we're going to add to this the email dot e dot target dot value. Okay, so whatever we're going to pass in, we're going to pass in here will be set to the state up here, which is for now set to an empty string. So let me complete this by actually I'm just going to here pass in the form, not data. What am I doing? Data, and data. There we go. I just messed something up. Wait just a second. From data. Also down here from data, and you should be also from data. What am I doing? Set form data. I messed up a bit. From data, and there we go. Okay. So whatever we're passing in here, you can see the event is console logging down here and trying to reset the form, but the form is preventing the reset because of our where do we have it? down here, our e.prevent, prevent default. So let's move back into our form, our sign up form, and we just need to complete in the onChange, again, the same thing. So I'm just going to copy this, paste it instead of the console log, and we're going to set here the password, and to change the password to password, this should be dot password. Okay, and the same thing down here, I'm going to paste in the form data dot confirm password, and we're going to do the same thing down here. Instead of the console log, the onChange will change the confirm password. Confirm and password. And I just messed up. We're missing here a parenthesis. Okay, so these are all working. Now let's take care of first name, last name, and username. So I'm going to close up this form, sign in form. I'm going to go into personal information. And again, we're going to, first of all, bring in the form data and the set form data. Okay, so the form data will take from here the first name, and it's going to set the form in what I'm going to do. I can just type it in. I'm going to set the form data to the initial form data, and then add to it the first name by targeting the event.target.value. Target.value. Okay, this is basically what we're going to do to all of these. So I'm just going to take you, paste it down here. This will be last name, not cast name, last name. And then set form data, paste it down here, and you should be also last name. And the last one will be username. So let's type in here form data dot user. I think I had here a capital N. Let me just check this. So username, and now I'm going to just copy this set form data instead of the console log. I'm going to change this to what just happened up here. Last name. Come on, you should be user name. There we go. Okay, and you know what? We're going to go to the welcome form, and just to show that this is already working, we're going to go up here where it says full name. I'm going to pass in here. First of all, you need to bring in form data up here, form data, and we're not going to set anything here. We're just going to grab onto the information and pass it down here. So down here we're going to have form data dot first name, and we can take this and also grab onto the form data dot last name. Okay, so if I would pass sign up, why isn't this working? Personal info form data use. No, you should be. Oh no, actually this is correct. So last name, username, form data, target value. Why aren't you working? Let me just check the console. Set form data is not defined. Set form data. Wait, set form data is not defined. I forgot to add this to the personal information. So form data, I'm going to take in the form data, and then the set. Now the property set form data is going to take in the set form data. And basically going to do the same thing for our very last one, which is going to be address. And there we go, this should work. Now next. So if I type in here Norbert and Menhart, next, and the very last one, forgot to set here we only need for the welcome page the form data. Okay, so let's try this again. Next, Norbert, tab, Menhart. Obviously you can type in your own name and click on next and click on next, and I only have Menhart. Why? Wait, welcome, form data, first name and last name. This is odd. Personal info first, missing a T. Those spellos. Let's try this again. So next, Norbert, Menhart, next, and Norbert Menhart. And we need a space between them, so I'm going to just do something like this, and this should already add spaces between them. Okay, now let's continue on. We need to display down here then in our user name, the username. So form data dot user and name, and then the very last one will be the email, and form data email. Okay, so now we can go back to our address and add the same thing up here. So for the address, we need, first of all, let's pass in form data and set form data. Now we can use them here as form data dot address. Basically, we're going to use not address but street and city, because the very first one is street. So street, and instead of the console log, you know what, I'm just going to copy this, unchange, go to the address, paste it in here. We have one parenthesis too much, and we're going to unchange, whoops, that's too much. Unchange, set the street to the target value. And you know what, it's best if I go back to the form, go down to the confirm button, to this right here. First of all, let's console log here the form data. Okay, so when we're going to finish with this, it's going to display the entire form data. Okay, let's go back to address, and we still have here the very last one, which will be form data dot, what was the last thing? City. So I can now copy the set form data, paste it, and instead of the console log, this will be city, and we should have everything up and running. So let's type in email, say Norbert, mail.com. Then the next one will be password, some kind of password, then another kind of password to confirm it. Obviously, they're not the same, and we're not adding any kind of validation. Then first name Norbert, Meinhardt, username Norbert M. Next step, city, Raccoon City, if you have a plate, Resident Evil, and street, let's say Elm Street. Okay, next, and we're done, and we hey, the email didn't go as planned. So let's take a look in our email, welcome page, form data, form email, form data.email. Why am I not getting the email? Because the username I am getting, let's go up here, email, and I did pass in an email. Let's click on finish first of all, and you will see down here everything that you typed in. So basically, confirmation password, first name, last name, username, and street. Okay, and if you click on OK, it's going to reset everything. Let me just go into the sign up form. So email, e.target.value. Why is this not getting the email? Norbert@mail.com. Oh, there we go. Now it's getting the email. So I'm just going to do this for another demonstration. So Norbert@mail.com. Password. Next, Norbert, Meinhardt, Norbert, BM. Subscribe to Norbert BM. The street and the city. Yeah, just passed in city and street. Whatever. City and next. And the email is not showing. This is really odd. Okay, so I think I know where the problem is. So here I have capital F. And this means it's not resetting the initial value of email, password, and confirm password. So let's try this again. Norbert@mail.com. Some sort of password, tab, next, first name Norbert, Meinhardt, and Norbert, BM, tab, next, some kind of city and some kind of street, next, and there we go. Done. Registration was successful. Norbert Meinhardt. So you're going to have here your full name and then username Norbert PM and your email norbert@mail.com. If you click on finish, then we're going to reset the entire thing. Okay, so this is the project. Hope you enjoyed it. Let me just make this larger. Hope you learned a lot. I did pack a lot into this project. This was a really large project. So if you did enjoy the project, hit that thumbs up button and give me a huge like. If you didn't like the project, then give me a thumbs down button. If you are interested in learning more about web development, then please subscribe to the channel and click that notification bell in order to get notified whenever I post new videos. So with this being said, catch you next time. Bye bye.